my friends. Welcome back to the Non-Toxic Environments Show. This is your host, Andy Pace. Now, as you may know, I spent about 5 days at a conference in Arizona called CIRSx Surviving Mold. CIRS stands for Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. This is their annual conference for both medical professionals, industry professionals, as well as those suffering from CIRS themselves, the actual medical patients, to learn all about the latest research and techniques into healing from CIRS, as well as preventing it to begin with. So we talked a lot about building materials, remodeling projects, ways to avoid water and mold in homes. Well, at this conference, I met a number of just amazingly intelligent people. I felt a little bit out of place. These folks know so much about this topic, and I wanted to share a lot of these stories here on the show. So the next several episodes of this show, you're going to be listening from some of these incredibly intelligent, wonderful people that I met down there. On today's show, I'm talking to Ariana Thacker. Ariana started a company called MoldCo. Now, MoldCo is if you've been diagnosed with issues related to mold exposure, or you haven't been diagnosed yet, but you're looking to find a concierge medicine available to you, MoldCo is your company. This is not an advertisement for them, but really just something that's truly exciting to be able to bring to you. And I'll have links in the show notes down below on how you can reach out to MoldCo and work with them yourself. MoldCo provides the prescriptions for the Shoemaker protocol directly to your door. So you don't have to have a Shoemaker-trained MD directly in your area to be able to, in order to receive the prescriptions necessary from healing. And so this is why it's so exciting. It's that they're bringing this directly to you instead of you having to drive sometimes hundreds of miles or longer to get to that physician. So Ariana has a great story of how she developed this, is extremely knowledgeable on the subject. We had a great conversation about it and what it's doing for folks. Again, in the notes, you'll find links directly to, I actually developed a portal with MoldCo where you can reach right out to them through it. I'll put that in the notes. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss any of the new episodes of the Non-Toxic Environment Show coming up. Again, most of them this season will be based upon the wonderful folks I met at CIRS and trying to bring some of that directly to you, because not everybody had a chance to go or listen to the shows online. And so you really want to hear from these folks. It was, again, eye-opening for me. I've been in the building remodeling industry for 33 years and specifically dealing with people with chemical sensitivities and allergies and asthma. And I learned so much at this conference, and I look forward to every opportunity now to learn more about CIRS and, again, how to heal, how to prevent. So here's Ariana. Ariana, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So you and I don't know if I actually met you at the CIRSx conference. I think we were sitting next to each other at one of the presentations on Thursday morning, I think. But I had a chance to talk to a number of people with your company, and it just fascinated me immediately. And I'm so excited to have you on the episode today to talk about it. So, as I ask all my guests, how in the world did you come up with this idea? There must have been some personal trigger or something that caused this.
There was absolutely a personal trigger. So it started with a health journey, and that actually started in Miami, Florida. So I had an onset of mysterious illnesses, as so many people in the CIRS and mold toxicity space do. I later made the mold health connection and recovered from the Shoemaker protocol. And then that inspired me to eventually build the company. It wasn't an obvious insight when I was first sick and recovering. It was very much after the fact. And it came from meeting a lot of other people that went through the same exact journey that I did, at the same level of frustration too, because there's so much misinformation. There's a lot of really technical information online. It's very challenging to navigate through that, especially while you're sick and brain fog and fatigued and all the things.
Wow. So what you just said, I've said before in other shows, and you really hit it on the head there. The information that's out there is so technical.
Yes.
It makes it very, very difficult for the average person who's not in the medical field or industry whatsoever, or even in mold remediation or the building industry. We just want to know, what is this? Where do we go from here? And don't talk to me as if you're in, IT and
Yeah.
nobody understands what you're saying except for you. We
Yeah.
want this easy to understand information. What are our steps? Tell me, guide me to my next solution.
100%. And thankfully, there were these genius IQ level people that inspired the field, built the data sets, navigated the pioneering solutions and biomarkers. But for your everyday person, it's completely inaccessible. And I actually come from a more technical background. I majored in chemical and biomolecular engineering. I took several pre-med courses. I'm an investor in healthcare and biotech, and I still had so much trouble navigating what was truth and understanding the publications and really just wrapping my head around what is this illness? How do I know if I have it? And then how do I get better? It's a very complex set of questions to answer.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but MoldCo really focuses on getting the right medication direct to the end user, correct?
That's right. And it's in a concierge care setting. So the process for patients today is that they would come on our website, moldco.com, complete an intake questionnaire, which is quite detailed, meet with one of our specialized and trained providers. That provider would then determine the right next step, or if the patient's even eligible or not, or
Hmm.
perhaps initiating additional lab testing just to make sure that the patient does qualify. So that's the intake process. From there, it can lead to any number of those things: ordering the lab tests, getting shipped the medications directly to your door, or determining we're not really the best fit for your unique case. We're not accepting all patients at the moment. At the moment, we're excluding the more complex patients, such as the hypersensitive patients, which make up perhaps around 4% of this patient population.
I can see how even with traditional the traditional medications and the traditional physicians groups that you work with that have telehealth, there's always these situations where they say, we just can't glean enough information from this type of a situation. You're going to have to come in and see somebody personally. And I'm sure that's exactly why you say for those cases that just require extra attention, you have to go see somebody.
Yeah, and we're a newer platform too. We just want to be conservative with patients' health, and we are very proactive in referring patients out to shoemaker certified professionals in our network as well, and that's really appreciated. But we are able to handle what we believe is the majority of the cases. So we think it's around this 96% number. Time will tell as
Mhm.
we scale nationwide, which we're also doing this year, what that exact percentage is. But that's Dr. Scott's and Dr. Shoemaker's best guess as to percentage of cases we're able to take on in a virtual setting.
So let's kind of step back a little bit to the average person who finds out, or maybe they don't find out from anything more than their own personal research. And we know sometimes that can be challenging because the research that people typically do on a subject means they go to Google, they type in these, what are my symptoms, all that stuff, and they say, I guess I have mold sensitivities.
Yeah.
So that can be challenging because I think, this is kind of the environment we now live in, is that people are taking their health matters into their own hands, and because they don't want to have to go through the traditional system because of all the challenges that has for us. So somebody finds out they're mold sensitive, and then they find MoldCo. What are they hoping to find from MoldCo as far as the kinds of medications, what's out there to help these folks?
You touched on so many great points. I just wanted to highlight one before answering your question directly, that it's almost a failed quest going through mainstream medicine and the whole host of primary care providers and specialists. Not to say you shouldn't explore that for your health, but if you've already made that mold health connection, it can save you a lot of time and pain just getting to that concept first, versus after the whole host of specialists and diagnostic testing, et cetera. But to answer your question specifically, for the medications we offer, we typically start with a prescription binder that's colesevelam, and that's an FDA approved medication for hyperlipidemia and for regulating blood sugar and type 2 diabetes. It's used off label for this use case, and it's considered the standard of care within the shoemaker circles, within the mold toxicity circles. There are a host of natural binders available. As a platform, we don't subscribe to that. We haven't seen evidence that's compelling that those binders actually work for patients. Anecdotally, we see that the prescription binders are 10 to 12 times faster acting.
Hmm.
However, not all patients qualify for that binder, and that's the assessment that one of our specialized providers completes. Another medication that we offer is actually our patented peptide, and we exclusively license this in from Dr. Shoemaker. And this is the VIP nasal spray for this use case of CIRS and mold toxicity. So that's a peptide we also offer on our platform too. And the third medication that we offer on our platform is an EDTA based nasal spray. We're also exploring xylitol based
Hmm.
solutions too in an R&D study, and those results already look quite promising. And that helps clear some of the biofilm and problematic microbial species that form in the nose. The field really highlights one species in particular, Marcons, which is an antibiotic resistant staphylococcus bacteria that tends to form in the nasal passages post exposure. So, just to summarize, the colesevelam, which is more of this detox binding step, the VIP peptide, it's a nasal spray, and that's more of this repair step, and then the EDTA nasal spray, and that's more of this clearing step.
Okay. So I hear a lot of my clients talking about the they're going through treatment for their mold sensitivities, for their MCAS or CIRS, uh, and they're trying to focus on holistic, what they call holistic or natural medications. But I know, as somebody who I've had a thyroid disease most of my life, that when you do the sort of the natural form of a thyroid medication, it doesn't have the same efficacy. It like from pill to pill, it can be a little bit different. From batch to batch, it can be different. And the endocrinologist will say you really have to go with the synthetic synthroid because we know each pill that you're supposed to take will have this exact dosage. And I have to imagine it's the same with what you're dealing with because although we would love to be able to say there's a natural way, a natural medication sort of to use, if it doesn't have the effectiveness that you require, then it could just make things worse.
Yeah, and just because a solution is natural doesn't mean it comes without side effects or negative consequences. I think that's a common misnomer. And we're open as a company to natural solutions. We're just waiting for the evidence. So I always say I'm in a neutral place. I'm eagerly awaiting to see the evidence. We have an R&D arm to what we're doing as well. We'll be completing high throughput screening, looking at a vast variety of these different compounds too, beyond FDA approved and peptide compounds, but also looking at these natural solutions. And then to address your MCAS point, we actually don't see that in the majority or even the large minority of patients. It perhaps hovers around this 4% number. That's a common overstated diagnosis in these circles. However, we do see high levels of histamine
Mm,
overexpression. So,
okay.
and that can be on the order of 40% of these patients. So we do see that it's usually not quite at the level of MCAS.
Hmm.
There's a lot of skepticism from our team around the histamine and degranulation of these mast cells. We just don't see evidence to support that yet. So
Okay.
I'm afraid that that's a over diagnosis that's happening in the field.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because I will tell you, I've been in this business for 33 years, and even CIRS wasn't on the radar till about since about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, big way.
MCAS, probably a little bit less than that. It's just all of a sudden, my clients 30 years ago were people with multiple chemical sensitivity, MCS.
Yes.
And we used to say back then that roughly 25% of the population has a chemical sensitivity, whether they know it or not. And it just so happens that research shows that 25% of the population has a sensitivity to mold now that we know the genetic testing.
Yeah.
So, but we're finding it's really the same person. And chemical sensitivity is um, 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 a symptom of an underlying condition, mold poisoning, let's call it, or something even worse. And so, I think we're all kind of just learning about this as we go. It's like the information available now versus 10 years ago. It's just miles apart.
Yeah, the field has really done a lot of development in the last 10 years. And I think we're all still trying to make sense of how to define these different concepts.
Hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of the same names for different things and a lot of different names for the same thing. So, and that comes from a lot of fragmentation in who's conducting the research and who's even assigning the nomenclature. And I think if we just fast forward 10 years from now as well, we may just completely redraw the lines and boundaries across what these things are. I like Dr. Shoemaker's framing for a lot of what his thesis is, which is around the biotoxin illness pathway. It's CIRS. It's across multiple different microbial species that undergo the same kind of storyline, where you have this innate immune system dysregulation, this first line of defense going haywire due to some sort of microbial insult, right? Whether that's fungal, bacterial, viral, and that leading to a state of chronic inflammation. And then to address your sensitivity point, it just scales from there. Are you more or less sensitive? And we see on the more sensitive end, the multiple chemical sensitivity, the confirmed MCAS through a licensed provider, the EMF sensitivity, et cetera. And
Hmm.
then others, maybe at the early stages of what we think is more of a boiling frog kind of scenario, where you have these symptoms, the brain fog, the fatigue, the frequent urination, the GI issues, et cetera, everything listed on the symptom cluster. That's just starting out, but perhaps most people are attributing that to getting older or burnout or stress or something else.
Hmm. Stress, anxiety, the cortisol, all these things that can really wreak havoc inside of our bodies. And I think the um, somebody who has been battling this for 20 years and they're so tired of having to have conversations with medical professionals, with family and friends to describe why they can't come to somebody's birthday party, why they can't leave their home, why one little exposure to something drives them to into isolation for the next 30 days. So they're so tired of battling this that it's just easier to assume that anything can trigger them or so many things can trigger them. So I see this as not only a true physical situation, but also it's now something that we have to deal with mentally, because we have to find the strength to overpower this and know that we are on a healing path and we can get better. We can get out into the real world again, but it's really hard to convince yourself of that.
Absolutely. And until there's a real-time monitoring solution, which there are a few companies undergoing the R&D now to make that possible, until there's more universal awareness around this issue, I would say that you're just relying on your own senses. And after exposure happens, you do have to then retreat to your safe space and take your binders, typically, follow a medical professional for that. Or you almost live in shame having to share this information and feel the judgment and feel the misunderstanding from others. This is just a very common pattern that these patients go through, on top of dealing with almost debilitating symptoms. It's this like psychological aspect that you're highlighting.
So here in United States or in all of North America, uh, you do estimate, I would assume, around 25% of the population it has this sensitivity.
Yeah, so this is based on Dr. Shoemaker's research around HLA-DR haplotype. So more specifically what that, and this is what the researchers think is going on. I'm sure we can be proven wrong around the exact mechanism of action, but it's an antigen presentation issue where the body is failing to recognize these foreign invaders, and the sirens are going off because they know something is wrong. And those sirens are the ongoing unregulated cytokine storm that then leads to this chronic inflammation. And the body's just not effectively able to detox or remove these antigens, these foreign invaders, the microbial species that come from a water damaged building. So that's the current understanding. And based on the 90% plus of patients that got consistently sick, they presented one of these haplotypes, which mapped to 24% of the US population, accounting for the European Americans and African Americans. There's different HLA subtypes across different ethnicities too.
So we have close to 100 million people in North America that are probably suffering from this. And think of how many Shoemaker certified physicians there are in the country. It's there's not enough in every state. There's not enough in every city of every state, and this is why your platform is so well needed and so important.
Correct. That's the problem we're trying to solve, or one of the many problems we're trying to solve, as well as the affordability and accessibility piece too. A lot of these patients tend to pay tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, usually self-pay, almost entirely self-pay, to get better. And we're trying to solve that. We're trying to solve eliminating the guesswork and going through a protocol that has been demonstrated in the research, that's evidence-based, as well as solving this other problem of, okay, I've identified a Shoemaker certified provider. I do have the resources. They do seem to have the right approach, but what's the availability? There's also the wait list component too, right?
Right.
And as this issue becomes more well known, that problem is just going to exacerbate. The prices are going to get more expensive. The providers are less available, et cetera, et cetera. So we've recognized this problem, and we're trying to solve several at the same time with the solution.
It's a daunting task. I can't imagine how you are doing this, and you must have a lot of people working on this in order to achieve this. I have to think of, what is the giant hurdle in this whole thing would be the insurance companies and their acceptance that CIRS is a real thing, that mold sensitivity is a real thing. And so how do you go about changing those minds to get them to accept? Because personally believe that if people actually had their mold sensitivities diagnosed, that would probably take care of a number of other health issues that they already have. And
Yeah.
so ultimately this becomes a more of a preventative health care than anything else.
Correct. And this is a problem that we're aware of, but punting for a little bit further down the line. Right now, the problem we're trying to solve is how do we get the self pay model as affordable as possible?
Hmm.
So, our all in cost on a monthly basis ranges from $150 to $300. That includes the provider time in a concierge care portal, which is like how many programs do you have or doctors do you have that you can just essentially text. This
Right.
is usually something reserved for the elite.
Hmm.
So that's part of that $150 to $300 cost, as well as the medication shipped directly to your door. To be persuasive to payers, to these insurance companies, we do need to present the data. It's not just billing against the whole host of symptoms, which do seem to be workable for some of these clinics. It'll be presenting that the hospital visit rates are reduced, the illnesses that they were typically going through their primary care provider or specialist are now diminished or eliminated entirely. So we're going to need to track these data points, but the more interesting question for us to solve is how do we get that self-pay rate as low as possible
Right.
and on par perhaps with the copay or on par with the medication at cost, right? Like that's a very interesting question.
And I find that the rates that you just talked about for your services to actually be incredibly affordable compared to what a lot of my clients now are paying for monthly supplements, for seeing 2 or 3 people a month. I mean, it could be triple what you talked about.
Absolutely, yeah, and especially if you get into the fancier supplements that are commonly prescribed, like the plasmalogens, for
Hmm.
example, those run at the same price, and it's just one supplement with, frankly, very early data. I'm waiting for the data, but it's still not proven, and it's still not published, especially for this indication.
Okay. Wow. So let me ask, how long have you been creating this platform? And because it seems like you have done so much in so little time, it's really remarkable.
Thank you. So we are venture backed. We did raise funding from venture capital firms. We've raised a total of close to $11 million to date. We have a team of 20 full time people. We have an extended team of contractors as well that helps us build this product and service patients, especially on the care side too. That requires a lot of human time right now. And we're building systems to make that a lot more scalable. And that looks like being able to answer hundreds of different scenarios in the patient portal with ease. That looks like being able to have nearly automated care journeys, ways to guide our providers to have the best possible care for our patients, especially as we get to the tens of thousands of users or even millions of users. I do think the estimate for the number of Americans impacted is around 30 million.
Hmm.
And obviously, that number gets a lot larger globally, especially in the UK. We're even having folks out of Europe and the UK reaching out to us cold to be able to travel to the US and get this care because there's just such a desert there in terms of providers and options. So there is a large team and venture financing to make all this possible. And the company started March 2023.
Wow. Wow. You have done so much, and again, in so little time. It's really remarkable. Um, so you're talking about all these new studies that you're doing, or you have ongoing studies. So are you looking at branching out into beyond just I mean, the Shoemaker protocol is like the gold level, the gold standard,
Right.
I believe, of care. But there are others that have maybe a little bit different ways of looking at this, and but I think ultimately the same goal of healing the patient. And I'm just kind of curious, from for those who might be following somebody else's protocol, does your platform still work within that?
We don't endorse other protocols at the moment. I'm staying in a neutral place until I see the data.
Sure.
I have not yet seen that at a compelling level yet for
Good.
this indication. It's something we're tracking. We've read several of the publications that are out there. It's just not compelling at this stage.
Hmm.
But we're open minded, and also beyond just published data, staying more open minded than that is also speaking to patients and anecdotally getting that information too.
Hmm.
So we're collecting all these data points. For the R&D side, the question I'm most interested in is what is this next generation of treatment and care and the biomarkers? What does this all look like, right? Because I think the Shoemaker protocol is absolutely brilliant. Obviously, Dr. Shoemaker is, again, genius IQ, coined CIRS, identified the biomarkers, identified the symptom clusters, came up with a treatment which, the published literature shows 74% improvement in the VIP peptide for symptoms resolution and 84% for cholestyramine, a sister compound, also a bile acid sequestrant to cholesevelam. But I'm more interested in what's next,
Hmm.
right? Because I think we're just at the early innings. And what if we find something that's far faster acting, far more effective,
Right.
and even more affordable for patients? That's a very interesting question to answer, and I think we can do it.
Hmm.
Mainly because imagine if Dr. Shoemaker were equipped with a large biobank and thousands of patient histories and AI and a
Hmm.
drug library of over 10,000 different compounds. If you throw that together in a recipe, what's our probability of finding something new
Right.
that beats what we currently have? I think that's quite high.
I love this. I love that this mentality and this way of looking at it, because so many in our industry are just they get complacent with what is working now, but they're not looking towards the future, looking to improve. And I love hearing that you're constantly on the lookout for new and innovative ways of treatment, of medications, and again, for a a disease that 10 years ago didn't exist until Dr. Shoemaker, you know, did so much research to coin that and to prove this.
Yeah.
It's still such uh, a young disease compared to things we've known about for decades.
Yeah, I'd say a newly defined
Def-
indication,
yeah.
often misdiagnosed or missed entirely prior, but mold dates back to Leviticus in the
Hmm.
Bible
Yes,
and
it
the health
does.
issues, right? So I would say a almost prehistoric issue, just more newly defined.
True that, yeah, and we can't certainly blow lime dust around everybody's house all day long because that's obviously unhealthy from a breathability standpoint. So, but yes,
Yeah.
you're exactly correct, and so it's just it's a wonderful example of how science and nature sort of combine and to create the knowledge and healthier ways to heal. I'm just so excited to be, my part of this is I'm a building materials guy. I'm not in the medical industry, although, I deal with so many clients. I've had 30,000 clients over the last 30 years who have chemical mold sensitivities, and I'm trying to help them to heal their homes and to have an organization like yours, a company like yours, helping to heal them personally on a grand scale. And it's not just trying to find that obscure physician somewhere that knows the Shoemaker protocol, but actually this can put it in the hands. Anybody with a mailbox now can get your services. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And in your camp too, the environmental innovations that are coming out, the mold-free communities,
Hmm.
the Firewall housing. There's
Hmm.
just so much fun innovation that's happening across the entire ecosystem. I think people outside of this community are going to be absolutely blown away by what's possible, how clean their air can be. A stat I love is that we're taking 20,000 breaths a day, and we spend so much time optimizing our food, choosing the right healthy organic foods, getting the cleanest water, maybe buying an RO system or a Berkey filter,
Hmm.
but almost no time or investment into the air we're breathing in our homes. It's crazy. Now your lungs are the air filter.
Exactly right. And you know, 30 years ago when we started talking about green building, it really took off in a direction of energy efficiency, environmental awareness, recycled content, energy efficiency, so forth, which is great, which is needed. But it really ignored the whole human health aspect of this.
Yes.
And I have found in the last 10 years, and specifically in the last 5 years since COVID, the whole concept of healthy homes has exploded. You cannot pick up a publication these days that's building related that doesn't talk about uh, healthier spaces, about healing environments, about the well building standard, all these things that relate to human health. And the beauty of this is this affects 100% of the population, where the green building, there's about half of the population it cares about it, and maybe half of that even are really committed to it. Everybody cares about their own personal health, the health of their family members, and so this has the chance to really take hold and become the norm. Healthier building, but it starts with healing yourself first because you can't live in a healthy home if you're not healthy yourself.
Yeah, I'm so curious what the solution will be that optimizes for both health and energy efficiency, right? A lot
Right.
of the buildings we're seeing, you're sacrificing the health piece for the energy efficient piece,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And it's
that's
just,
been an ongoing conversation with myself and builders or architects that I work with. It's that we have to make the decision at some point. There's 800 different materials that go into building a new home. And out
wow.
of those 800 materials, you can either buy something that's natural, something that's energy efficient, or something that's safe. You can't always get all three. You might have to choose one. And if we choose energy efficiency or we choose natural, sometimes that means that it's not safe for the occupants. So we have to decide before we even start building, what's the most important goal here? And if the most important goal here is human health, then we choose materials based upon that. But again, if you are living in a healthy home but you're not healthy yourself, this is where um, you have to go both ways. It's like Dr. Shoemaker says, you have to live in a healthy environment before you can even begin the human healing process.
Correct. And then so you have your energy, health, and safety equation now getting calibrated against how profitable is this? How expensive is this? What's the
Right.
capex and opex investment here,
Mm-hmm.
too? So I think it normally forces the equation towards the energy efficient
It does.
side of the spectrum versus the health and safety end of the spectrum.
And that's why your services are so important because it's helping to bring those medical care costs down, more available. People don't have to travel now to a different city, a different state to see a Shoemaker a physician. And so, if we can keep those costs down and make the treatments more effective, then we can then afford on the building side to use healthier materials. So it all plays together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in an ideal world, and this puts me out of business, not having anyone get sick in the first place, and that's through intelligent design
Hmm.
of these buildings and the space. But I don't know if that's really going to be possible in our lifetime.
I don't think it'll be possible in our lifetime, but I'd like look 3, 4, 5 generations down.
Yeah.
When I started my company, one of the conversations I had with other building suppliers around the country who also focused on these types of products, the conversation came down to, well, what happens if every home improvement center and big box stores started selling the same materials we did? And my response was, thank God, we finally changed the paradigm. We finally changed the way things are done. And if it puts me out of business, so be it. But my goal was to improve the health of the occupants of these homes through better building practices. And so I would just be so grateful that it happened, and I would be happy that I was a part of it.
That's amazing. I mean, you're operating a tier above, right? Like, what's the vision for humanity
Mhm.
beyond what's the vision for just yourself, right? It's this other focus that I think all owners, all leaders need to incorporate more of.
Right. And so I see what you're doing as that exact same way. Is that, of course, we don't want more people getting sick. We want fewer people getting sick. The
Correct.
more people we heal, but the difference I think with what you're doing is, I think we're just scratching the surface of how many people are affected by mold and bacteria. I think the number is going to be larger than what we're seeing right now, because I do believe that we are going to find out probably within the next few years a correlation with all sorts of health issues. Diabetes, I believe, is going to be correlated to inflammation and a sensitivity to mold.
We are already seeing early evidence of this across neurodegeneration, diabetes, pulmonary hypertension, obesity as well,
Mm-hmm.
various metabolic conditions beyond obesity.
Mm-hmm.
So we're already starting to see this, and I think it's so entrenched already around mold's role in allergies, fungal infections, and asthma. And now the NIH finally recognized the immune effects and the cognitive effects and mental health effects, right? The
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and depression too. So it's all coming, and I'm so happy to finally see the NIH, a formal governmental body, recognizing this illness more and more. It's
Right.
not like they stated CIRS on the website, but they listed all the main symptoms associated with CIRS or mold toxicity.
I was very happy to hear RFK Jr. actually mention the four-letter word of mold, and so I'm. This is the thing. It's like it's finally coming to light, and I totally agree with you that we're going to find so many other things. Obesogens can be from synthetic chemicals. I believe you can also tag DNA with obesogens that are from a mold or bacteria that can tag DNA and be passed along from generation to generation. Again, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not in that industry, but I do see this as being a something that we'll find out very soon.
Yeah, I was really happy to see the RFK Jr. announcement as well. It was tied to the 6 environmental causes for potential autism,
Hmm.
and imploring the HHS to research that further. And your second thought inspired another almost poetic idea. So there's this idea that, or actually, it was a formal study. So you have two groups of cats, and one can have cooked meat and milk, and the other one raw meat and milk. So the raw meat and milk is having more nutrients. And then they showed what happens generation after generation for these cats. And the ones that had the raw meat and milk, where there wasn't this nutrient deficiency, they thrived. But then we saw a deterioration of health generation after generation for this other set of cats. So
Mm.
it explored this multi generational concept that you're explaining. It's hard to do that with humans because our lifespan is so long,
Hmm.
but perhaps that is happening, and perhaps that is due to the rising inflammation, largely tied to our environment and the biotoxins that we're exposed to. And we're
Right.
already
Yeah.
seeing that at a genetic level. We're seeing the upregulation of certain genes or downregulation of certain genes, and that's mapped to some of the data that we have within the company.
I had a conversation a few months ago with Dr. Stuart Lonke talking about epigenetics and how the built environment is essentially causing harm long term. And he mentioned how these tags that gets on our DNA get passed along usually to the next 2 or 3 generations, but they never really wear out beyond that because just additional tags get put on there. It's like barnacles on a ship. You can take them off, but you're getting more on at the same time.
Right, and what's happening in utero as well if you're in a water
Yes.
damaged building and inhaling these
Oh my
toxins.
gosh. This
Right.
is
Yeah.
it's a daunting thought to think about what all is out there and what can harm us, but that the fact that we have companies like yours on the just the cutting edge of healthcare, it's encouraging, and I can't thank you enough for what you're doing and what your entire staff is doing. Again, the thousands of people I've dealt with over the years that just had no place to go, no one to turn to because they just couldn't afford the healthcare that they required, and this gives them something to, uh, I guess, be looking forward to.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure to serve humanity in this way, and yeah, I would love to just keep getting that price lower and lower for patients, just to be able to serve as many people as possible. So, absolutely,
Excellent.
yeah.
Ariana, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. I can't thank you enough, and I look forward to learning about the new and exciting innovations that you're doing. Folks, I'll put links directly to them in the show notes, and I encourage you to reach out, especially if you don't have a shoemaker certified physician in your area. This is the perfect way to start your journey to health and wellness.
Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any questions, we do have an open email. I read a lot of those emails. So it's support@moldco.com. So don't be shy to reach out and ask questions. We're here to support.
100%. People do that. Do that today. Ask questions, get your answers, get on the healing path, and yeah, this is exciting. Thank you so much, Ariana.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.